What's up, marketing legends, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm producer Liza from X Growth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. Whether you're new to the B2B game, working at a leadership level, or even just showing some interest, we know you'll love the episode. So wherever you are, get comfy and enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, I'm Vinnie, and we're back for another episode of the Growth Colony where we talk to B2B marketers about their paths, focusing on success, but uncovering where things haven't always gone right so you can make better, more informed decisions on your own journey. Today, we're joined by Brynn, the head of marketing for OneAdvanced across Australia and New Zealand. He's an ESG specialist with over a decade of leading marketing across consulting services, SaaS, financial services, commercial real estate, and renewable energy. He specializes in driving brand growth, partnerships, and ESG integration through ABM, channel partnerships, brand management, and PR. It's a pleasure to have him.
Thank you, Vinnie. Thank you so much for the introduction as well. Great to be here.
When we spoke before, we talked about a couple of things. I was particularly interested in bringing you on to address our audience. One of the things that I'm deeply passionate about, which I'm going to ask you some questions around, is sales and marketing alignment. You being a marketer in a senior position, you having had some of the experiences that you've had, not necessarily typical of a corporate marketer. There's a couple of things that you've done before. You took a couple of strings to your bow. And so I'm interested in your take on the topic of sales and marketing alignment, but with a twist, with a focus on account-based marketing, or ABM. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of talk around what ABM actually is, an evolving topic, something that is important. But in order to identify how important it is, I think we have to first be able to identify it. So back to sales and marketing alignment in a broader sense through the lens of ABM. We know it's crucial for driving growth, right? So, but how does ABM fit into sales and marketing alignment? And what have you found that's effective for ensuring marketing teams deliver real business impact rather than, not being aligned or operating in silos?
Yeah, look, it's definitely a good question. So my background, obviously, because I come from quite a strategic sort of sales background previously, before I actually transitioned into marketing. And I think that, the main key difference points between what is important to marketing compared to what is important to sales is, sales really doesn't want vanity metrics. They want something that's actually tangible and it's going to obviously help their pipeline grow and that they convert. Whereas I think often what happens is marketing relies more on, a bit of fluff sometimes. So it'll be, click rates and stuff like that, which is honestly not something that the sales team are really interested in. Where ABM sort of, I guess, bridges this gap is you form alignment, and it's you have to form alignment with ABM because you're going after specific strategic accounts that you have worked together from the beginning of the journey all the way through to execution in like a journey together. So it's basically, you always say success is not driven off the destination, but the journey to get there. And I think it's making sure that when you're talking to the sales team, it's making sure they're part of the journey all the way from the planning and development all the way through to execution. And it's not just the sales team as well. I'd say you're looking at the SDR team, account management team, the customer experience team. They all have to have that, add-in and strategic input. So when you're talking, and ABM, it's got different levels to it and different people look after it in different ways. But it's normally just broken, obviously, into your net new sort of ABM accounts, and then obviously your strategic existing accounts where you're trying to upsell and grow into a particular client. So I think working obviously with the account managers and even at OneAdvanced, it's making sure that you're driving initiatives into your top different tiers across the ABM structure. So currently with something we're doing very well is we align with the account management team from the early days on who are the top 10 accounts that they want to sort of go into, and those accounts are sort of formed on the basis of what is the growth potential of them, how long have they been with the company, the size, the attribution size. the ARR value that you're going to get off the back of those accounts as well. And I guess the current relationship as well. And do you know all the personas within those current organizations? Because often what happens is different persona looks after a different product or different implementation. And is the company fully rolling out your solution to the entire team? So is the change enablement or the change process being rolled out successfully? Is it, there's training that's needed from your side to sort of fully adopt them onto the system? I know for one example, in OneAdvanced, we've got different account managers looking after different solutions. So how do they work together to make sure that they're cross-selling, modules and different solutions into that particular client to sort of grow them? So, and you don't know that until you've actually done discovery stages, really understand your audience that you're talking to. And that's where, different tech facilities come in, where you can sort of use technology and automation tools and, ABM tools that can really map out the entire audience within an organization. So who you're speaking to with what messaging, with what sort of value prop. And then you've got your tiers, obviously, with the one-to-one, one-to-many, and one-to-few sort of categories you go after, and how much of your time are you spending prioritized on the correct account within the organization. Whereas net new is really making sure that you're going after a particular sector and a vertical that's going to be aligning specifically to your company's growth and values, and that you are aligned across the initiatives and things like that. And I would say an important part of aligning with the sales team is making sure that you've got agreed KPIs and goals from the start all the way through. Obviously, those change over time. But I think if you can agree that from, what's everybody's responsibility, what's the action and the output that you're looking for in terms of cost to ROI. So if I'm going to an event, for example, is that event going after a particular audience? I'm not just going to go and spend a whole lot of marketing budget on something that I can't prove I'm going to get ROI off the back of, no matter how long that ROI takes to come through. I need to show that at least it's being tracked from, our Salesforce system or some other sort of solution where we can sort of validate that over a consistent time to go back. And I think that's where, again, coming back to, you don't want vanity metrics. You want to actually show influence pipeline across the different touch points, and then obviously how you sort of nurturing that lead to the point of execution. So yeah, I think, what's really good is you creating these work groups and you sort of segment out who's looking after what, and then obviously making sure that everybody's got a responsibility and sort of comes to play. And it always takes some time when you're sort of working with a sales team, as I'm sure other marketers would test to sort of prove trust with, making sure that marketing is actually delivering what they want. But as soon as, those results sort of coming through, and I think sales see that's actually working, moving from that spray and pray approach to more of a strategic alignment, going after the very specific accounts that you've identified in the market, makes a big deal and a big difference for organizations growing. Yep.
So you've basically just mapped out an entire ABM strategy in about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well done. we should be paying you to come on here. Let me ask you this, right? So do you think, just let's take it back a second. So I hear you, I get it. I'm going to ask you for some more practical examples there to kind of break it down a little bit more for the audience, because some people are in different spaces. But first things first, personal opinion from you. Would you say, so we know that sales and marketing alignment is important. Would you say that ABM, if executed correctly, is the linchpin between achieving true sales and marketing alignment?
Yeah, 100%. I think if you're, and I mean, so many companies now adopting it and trying to get over it. I wouldn't say it's been around for a long time, but companies are very quickly trying to establish a strategy in play and matching out their, initiatives with marketing as they sort of build out their focus for the new year. Especially now, a lot of companies are sort of building out their budgets and allocations, and how they're going to grow on by a certain percentage in the next, financial year. So, now is a critical time. At the beginning of the year, it should have been done already towards December, making sure that you've got those alignments and everybody on board. I would say make sure that the team is fully versed on what ABM is, because often what happens is, sales will run off and sort of identify a whole lot of accounts. And then it's, okay, we've got the accounts, like what is marketing going to do now to try and get those accounts over the board? But it's really making sure you've mapped out the accounts on a strategic level. So, an example that I always use is when I was at my previous company working more in commercial real estate marketing is, you often find that the person from account management or, trying to grow an existing account is you get the user within that organization, but then you also got the decision maker And often the decision maker is just the person who obviously signs the contract or the proposal or RFP that you're looking to put forward, whereas the user is the one that's actually using the tech. But what you really need to be doing is connecting with the decision maker, because the decision maker is going to be the one who pushes other solutions into the organization, or could reference, other ecosystem tech adoption points that they can use to grow with their own sort of strategy. So a good example is one that I sort of reached out to ages ago, where we had quite a big commercial client, and they were sort of on, I think, one or two of our solutions at the time, paying quite a bit in terms of revenue per year. Massive potential to grow. So we, it was actually just myself at the time and a small little team, sort of mapped out the entire employee or the title base. If we wanted to go into the target titles across, the CFOs, the decision makers within the organization. And we sort of identified there was one particular lady who sort of made a lot of the decisions and sort of did sign off a lot of the contracts. Did a bit of research on her, and I found out, there's particular trends that she's interested in. She's different events that she attends. There's different things that she, subscribe to over social media. Massive influence in the market, talking about data, AI, that whole validation, making sure that she's talking across, ESG and things like that as well. So she was often picked to speak at these massive events that we would actually be attending, and sort of trying to sponsor and sort of, get recognition at. And I had reached out to her because there was one particular event that we had never attended past, and we were looking to possibly sponsor this event, but I had no data from previous exposure to the event on how many people came, what's the actual audience like, what's your vendors compared to your actual buyers at the event. So I gave her a call because she's spoken at the event a couple of times, and I just said to her, you've been at this event, be really keen to pick your brain on a couple suggestive things that we're looking to do at the event, and whether or not it'd be worth us actually sponsoring the event now or in the future. And she booked a time for me to chat with her. And through the conversation, I mentioned I've seen her across a lot of these events in the previous times. I know she talks about particular things. Was very keen to find out more about her strategy, and is this obviously of interest to her? One thing led to another, and she mentioned to me on the call, you're the first person from your company who's actually reached out and had conversation with me on this level. Nobody else has actually picked up a call. I don't even know who your director is. I don't know who your team is. All I know is I'm signing your contracts. I don't even know what the solution properly does. So had a good chat, and then at the event, I actually went up and introduced her to the rest of the team. I introduced her to the director. We got her in shortly after that, and she walked through the whole strategy that she was looking to actually plan out. She brought in the relevant personas that they were looking at adopting. So they were looking at workspace management and other sort of solutions. One thing's led to another, and she's spoken at a couple of our own personal events at the last company, and she walked through her entire strategy, what they're sort of looking to accomplish. We've got a much better relationship with her, and she's actually become a mentor of mine now. So if I got career or anything advice that I need, she's my go-to, and I often get some really good aspects and synergy on, especially around ESG at the moment, that I'm sort of leverage off her skills and experience in the market. So, but that is something that teams should be doing. Teams should be reaching out and making that personal connection. And I think that's where you see the real boost in growth within an organization. It's not just making sure you're going out and you're doing a quick hello over the phone. It's actually diving into what is of interest to that particular person. And when you're going to sell to them from a marketing or sales perspective, are you talking to the value points that they actually want to know? And ABM comes into that, because ABM is a way for you to map out exactly what the value points are for that particular company on that strategic sort of level. And obviously, as you go down the tiers of ABM to your one to many, it becomes more automated, but obviously those are less likely to grow and expand for those organizations.
Yeah, so ABM is a way of doing what it is that you, in that story, which started off with a phone call and turned into a very lucrative relationship, both, I'd imagine financially, but also professionally for everyone involved. And ABM is a way of being able to scale that entire process systematically, programmatically, and track. So get that. Great. What a fantastic story. Can I just quickly ask, what position were you when you reached out? Were you in sales or were you in marketing?
Good question. No, I was in marketing. So, and yeah, I'd probably add to that point because, sales, there's often this first, I guess, almost like a hesitance from sales to give access to an account from a marketing perspective because they often like, don't mess up my opportunity or proposal or anything like that. I think what's missing from the understanding is that marketing is not there to take your lead or to interfere. The opportunity is there to really grow. Yeah, it's really about growing your client as an advocate and a thought leader in the industry. Everyone wants to be a thought leader and sort of share their knowledge and experience. And I think giving your clients the opportunity to become advocates in the industry or talk about particular areas of focus really boosts their engagement. And the more people we were able to do that with, so I mean, even going back to that example of the story, by connecting with her on such a strategic level, we were able to then use that relationship to build other relationships with other key clients because, she's speaking at all these events, people know who she is, they're in the industry. So you mentioned somebody's name, it's a lot easier to have a conversation, even from a sales perspective, with those other companies that you're trying to get into as well. And it gives you that leverage, right? That you got the advocacy sort of building up on your side, and eventually you've got an entire book of advocates promoting your business through social media and stuff like that. And that's where the referrals start coming in.
So how were you seen by the sales team when that sort of situation, you took the initiative? Did you have to go to someone in the sales team for approval to pick up the phone, or did you just do it?
No, I actually just took initiative from that sense. I would probably say, look, definitely.
Let me stop you there. Good man. Good man.
I think, don't be hesitant to reach out to somebody. There's the person, and whether or not, I mean, I try and connect to everyone on LinkedIn and other social media things anyway, because, I want to make sure that they know who the company and the organization is from a brand perspective and employee perspective anyway. But it's funny. I reached out on my own initiative, got that conversation happening. I sort of introduced it to the rest of the sales team, but that straight away built trust with the sales team. And after that, it was like, you should reach out to this person. I think they would be a really good speaker in our office. And I think they're talking about these particular things, which ties in really well to our product. And so, you had a lot of names. And I think it was just a flow-on effect from that sort of point onward. But, and even now in the new company I'm working at, it's a ripple effect. So it's happening quite well. And I think once you've got a couple of testimonials and, you are, I'd say never be afraid just to go up and talk to people. People want to hear who you are and what you want to, talk to them about, and you're giving them the opportunity to share their voice. And legit, it was just reaching out for some assistance and advice at a particular event, and people are often happy to give advice and help. So, I'd say definitely go for it.
Very good. The difference here is that you took the initiative on a prospective person that has the power to move the company that you represent forward in more ways than one, right?
Yeah.
The difference here is that particular that prospective person or prospect wasn't on the radar of your team, wasn't on the radar of your senior management of that team. Or maybe she was, but she wasn't someone that anyone had reached out to.
Yeah.
And so maybe the difference here is that, what you did was, instead of ruin an existing opportunity or potentially ruin an existing opportunity, as per the example that you gave of, what salespeople could say to marketing, being hesitant. What it was that you looked at someone that potentially was fair game, I suppose. And the point that I'm getting to here, right, is what would you say to any marketer that's sat and listening to this right now, a marketing person, without a background in sales, like yourself, right? What would you say to a marketing person that's probably thinking, yeah, but I'm not in sales, or yuck, that's not for me, that's sales?
Yeah, look, I think relationship building is transferable skill. I don't think you should be limiting your capabilities and to not reaching out and to talk to people. On the other hand, I would say you're not going into there to try and sell them something that is, more aligned to the sales team and that they are experienced in that sort of sense. I would say building relationship and just making sure that the person understands that what's a pain point or what's a value proposition to them. So I would say do your research before reaching out to somebody to make sure you have an understanding of the organization, the person, their role, responsibilities, and how what you're trying to sell them in the future is going to affect their everyday, working environment. and then go into the conversation, because obviously you're trying to build a connection or, you know, friend within the industry. You're not trying to obviously sell them something. So I would say do that first. And, you know, a lot of the relationships and a lot of sales is built off, you know, connections and familiarity and people that you know. It's not built off, you know, somebody cold calling you from a phone call. You know, people are still cold calling and things like that, but you got to have, you know, the right sort of back end ammunition, if you like, to actually go after them. So if I reach out to somebody and I'm just saying from like a sales sort of point of view, it's a much easier, you know, conversation for me to say, you know, I know so-and-so within your organization, or that you are connected with so-and-so on LinkedIn. I've seen you at similar sort of events. They are using our solution in this sort of area, and they're actually working with us in a particular webinar in this sort of thought leadership space. Is this a, you know, a topic that's of interest to you as well? It might be worth you coming along to this webinar, and we can have a chat afterwards about it or something like that, rather than going and say, you know, this is what I want to sell you, in that sort of sense. And that's where you need marketing's guidance from, you know, what are the value props that we're sort of seeing in the industry and hearing back from our clients. And also from customer experience. Customer experience are obviously dealing with the happy, you know, clients at the end of the implementation process, and, you know, they're hearing the good feedback that you could sort of ripple down to the rest of the team.
Okay, so what would you say to this then? You are a marketer with a sales background, so you've had your fair share of rejection.
Yes, definitely.
Right. You've had your fair share of rejection. The very main reasons why people don't reach out, irrespective of what department they're in, is because of that fear of rejection. It's almost like, unless you've done it and witnessed what it's like to fail and kind of realize that it's not going to go away, in order to succeed, you need to fail. It's not just sales, that's life, right? So what can you tell? It's a beautiful example, right? A marketing leader reaching out, identifying a potential prospect, reaching out, not on the radar of the sales organization, reaching out, worked wonders, turned into a fantastic situation for all, not only financially, but also professionally. You were able to build trust internally with the team. They then started suggesting things that you should be doing. You're part of the crew, you're part of the team, happy days, hunky-dory, sales and marketing alignment, life unlocked. Fantastic. It's not to say that that's the only way to do it, but it's a good way to do it. My question, yeah, but I'm scared of rejection. And let's face it, marketers are not incentivized to have to pick up the phone. That's why salespeople are incentivized, because of the amount of, you know, rejection that they're going to be facing. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons. So how do you tap into the fragile minded who are marketing leaders in terms of understanding that building relationships, picking up the phone or reaching out, having a conversation, building relationships, but scared as to what's going to happen? How do you tap into that, and how do you convince them?
Yeah, look, I think, as you know, like the background for mine is, it was sales, but a while ago when you had to obviously stand up and you'd use the white papers and you'd literally be calling someone over and over and over to try and get through. And I think back then when we were sort of doing more sales, I'm sure there's a couple of companies out there still where you'd have a manager who sort of walks in and he checks the numbers, how many calls you've made and how many calls you've actually got through to. There'll be like a big number on top of some screen, and if you haven't made like 200 calls by the end of the day, you're not doing your job. And so there's a numbers game that you would sort of get it through. And I think from that numbers game, what we sort of found is the ones that really came on board and sort of sometimes were, you know, the unexpected ones that you wouldn't think would have come on board in the first place. And I remember having a couple conversations with individuals. This is way back where, you know, you'd get somebody on the phone and they'd be very rude to you. But again, it's how you handle the situation, right? You're not there to have an argument with someone. You're really just trying to have a conversation, and it's a soft sell. You're not going obviously to sell the earth to them. And I think people realize that, you know, you're just trying to do your job, whether it be from a sales or marketing perspective. I think either way, it's a learning opportunity. If somebody's not interested, it's very rare now somebody's going to, you know, go offer you a phone if you're just trying to call them from a marketing perspective to get insights. I wouldn't say you're trying to reach out to them at all from a marketing perspective to try and sell them something, but I would definitely say if you're trying to, you know, get feedback from them, people are very happy to do that. And you're never going to have, or you shouldn't have, somebody who's so disgruntled about, you know, your software or service or something like that, they're just going to go offer you on the phone. And if they do, you should have done your research beforehand to understand where that company is sitting at in terms of, you know, whether about to churn or if they're happy with your product or something like that before you reach out. So it's always I guess that's the good thing about marketing. If you want a case study or client or something like that to come on board for like a webinar or thought leadership piece, they're normally in a good position. And I would be working closely with your team to identify who that person is before you sort of reaching out to them. And often you would get an intro anyway from the salesperson to sort of, look at the marketing opportunities where you can work together. If you're going out brand new and you're sort of going to somebody from scratch, I would always just send a soft message, probably via LinkedIn or something like that first, just to see if they got the time to chat, because it's often a case. And even if I do talk to somebody on the phone, I would reference somebody else I've spoken to in the industry that's, recommended I reach out to them. That's always helped out that sort of opportunity. So make sure you know a lot about the companies to reach out, and don't be afraid. Like, obviously, people start somewhere. I was very, very shy when I started out I used to be a barista when I came out of school and working in, making coffee for people, and I couldn't have a conversation. It was just too much to try and talk to them and do coffee, but it was good hiding behind a big machine and you could just make the coffee and then, old school sales. And then, eventually pushing yourself out, practice, and just continually doing it, sort of, you become a lot more easygoing, and having conversations with people become a lot more streamlined. And I think also having a listening on a couple of like, if your clients are talking to your sales team about particular things that they are interested in the market, I would jump on a couple of those calls just to listen to the feedback that your clients are actually giving, because you learn very quickly with your clients and what things are happening around the market or within the industry that's affecting everyone. So if you can have a conversation and understand what those common trends and trends of conversation are happening, it's a lot easier to have that conversation. You'll find that those conversations start flowing. And I think that's why I got so involved in ESG. ESG was something that one of our clients were talking about on a strategic level, how we're going to work ESG into our strategy. And it led me to having conversations over and over and over with our clients and even prospects about ESG and what are they doing for the ESG moving forward. And obviously one of our solutions was helping out with the ESG, so to sort of coupled in. And then, decided that's really what I want to have more experience in and skill and understanding, and led me to, getting the diploma of ESG. And then now it's sort of, I've realized how it is important across not just the old company I was at, but the new company as well, when you're reaching out to clients, because it's a staple. It might not just be ESG, it could be, anything else that's within the industry, whether it be data or compliance or risk or, new acts that are coming out. You've really got to be on top of those things, educate yourself around what's happening in the market.
So I want to get to the ESG component, but one last question just to wrap up this sort of piece around sales and marketing alignment. Last question for you. So effectively what we understand is that marketers have the opportunity to be involved in the process some way, shape or form from a marketing perspective when it comes to moving the business forward, spotting opportunities and having those conversations, building those relationships. If you can overcome the fear of rejection or anything else that's stopping you from getting involved, if you're, purely saying, well, I'm in marketing, I'm not in sales, you're letting an opportunity pass you by, because as we have been saying, is that sales and marketing alignment is incredibly crucial for driving growth, which is, let's face it, one of, if not the main reason as to why you're there as a marketer, is to drive growth. So we can't expect people, marketers, who aren't incentivized to pick up the phone and start conversations from scratch, irrespective of how much research that they are prepared to do ahead of a call or an outreach piece. Would you say that the best way, or one of the ways, I dare suggest it's the best way, is that the marketer that we're speaking to right now, our voices are in their ears whilst they're out taking their dog for a walk. And this might be the wake-up call that they might need in terms of how to get marketing and sales alignment working within your organization. Good place to start. Do a 2-week stint in the sales department.
I love that idea. I think that's really, really good. And I think, you got within the marketing team, obviously different marketers look after different roles. I think that's a key one, especially when you're looking from a product marketing perspective, but also like a customer marketing experience background. If you're looking strategic, they should all be getting involved in, the client conversations, going out to meet the clients, understanding, that you're not just sitting quietly at the table behind something, you are really having a voice. And I would say, you mentioned obviously not having the same sort of metrics or the KPIs as sales, but at the end of the day, you are still validated according to the company's growth priorities. So if your company is looking at like 25% growth over the next year, then you are going to be, looked at when the sales team are not hitting their booking number. It often comes back, it's always a case of if they're hitting booking number, marketing is sort of left without, there's no sort of jumping back down their throats. But as soon as sales hits a booking number, then it's like, where's the pipeline from a marketing perspective? Like, you haven't given me my pipeline, I can't, get the booking number. So I think making sure you got a voice from the beginning of what the expectation is from every side and angle with the company alignment in mind, then that would be your first key to go. And I think making sure that you're right, sitting in the 2-week period doing a bit of a trial. A lot of companies do what's called the sales kickoff, where they send all sales off to another location and they do that full this is what we're going to be doing, and they celebrate everyone's achievement. Marketing should really be pulled into that, because marketing is really, if you're working in true alignment and even with an ABM sort of structure, then you all should be pulled into the same sort of training, so you understand, what sales is being equipped with, and you're going to be called in later from a sales enablement point of view anyway. So I would say, from the ground up, making sure that your teams are aligned and going forward. Same sort of strategy, same sort of focus and goal, and then, the journey to get there in the end as well.
So good news for marketers that don't have a sales background. There is another way.
Yeah.
A team next door with a big partition up in between you both.
Yeah.
Get the sledgehammer out.
100%.
Yeah, and I mean for the wall, not for the sales team. Let's touch on, I think before we get into ESG, something that's particularly interesting about you is the building and growing a business. You've built and grown businesses as well as worked in corporate. So what benefits or lessons have you learned in developing strategy, building a team, stakeholder management from building businesses? Would you share with the everyday marketer that's listening to us right now, aiming to transition from tactical execution to strategic leadership? Anything that you can glean on from your time of building businesses, and what benefit?
I would definitely say, the one that was probably the most successful that I built is, it actually was through client conversations. I was at a company and we were obviously having conversations with our clients, and there was this feedback all the time that there's something missing in the market that could help us with this particular area. And I jumped on the opportunity. I was like, what, I've got to explore this. And I was sort of working in a marketing agency at the time, and having that direct contact with the clients. And I thought, there's an opportunity. I'm going to break away. And so I did break away, started my own business. I think the key aspect for that was realizing that it's not just about having a vision in mind and, where you're going to go to and having all your overheads in plan and things like that. You really are taking on the role of not just obviously the director, but obviously someone from sales, someone from marketing, strategic. You're doing all the, updates, socials and everything like that, and making sure that you're obviously keeping the stakeholders involved and up to date with everything through different communications according to what they want to know. So very quickly learning to adapt to your communication and presentation skills to the right audience, making sure that they have what they need to, if you're going out for investment, for example, what are you wanting them to know about your organization that's different to other organizations that, they would possibly invest into? What's your key differentiator? And I also say, have the ability to adapt quick within the market. So don't build a product or service based on something now, build something that's going to be able to be flexible in the future. So if you think about, there's a couple of examples out there where organizations have built standalone operating systems where they would have their own, API, and it's not able to open up to any other sort of partner solution or anything like that. But the way we're moving now, especially with AI and everything coming on board, is, you really have to have a model that can adapt and be added onto other integrations, third-party integrations, partners, anything like that to build and expand. Because if you can't expand your business over a certain period of time, you're going to basically drown in the competitive market. And it's very hard to sort of build that up. And I think the other aspect you mentioned, obviously, is the communication sort of side. I think open communication, just not across just your team, but the stakeholders, making sure that with the clients, your team and the stakeholders, you've got open, clear communication set in place so that nobody can go back later and be like, well, no, this is not what you said. You actually said this. And even just building, I think, clients out. I actually found the quickest and easiest way for me to build clients for myself was obviously coming off board. I had a couple clients that sort of joined up straight away looking for the particular service because it was a need in the market. And then referrals and then LinkedIn. So LinkedIn was a massive boost for the organization to try and get, the right sort of clients on board because, you got Sales Navigator and everything else that can really sort of help you identify who it is. But there was always a personalized approach. So I found that once I got, I think, 2 or 3 clients on board, they started referring other people on board and just became a chain reaction until we had, like tens or hundreds of clients on board. And the solution I sort of built was more of an automation one. So it would basically just run itself and sort of expand. But I think learning from those experiences is I would have built something that can adapt quicker to market changes, and market is changing very quickly. And the minute you think you've got a product or an idea out there, somebody else has the same idea coming out. So you have to be quick and on the ball because somebody else is going to come in and take it. So I wouldn't say drag your feet or anything like that. Make sure you connect to the right people. Have the right mentors in mind as well. So if you're reaching out and trying to get information, make sure you first patented your idea so that other people can take it. But I would also say look and identify people in the market that have strategically run in terms of their business strategies and things like that, and making sure you connect with them and get their expertise. So, I had a business the other day, and I ran it past someone who I know is very strategic minded, and she called up like a couple of things that I'd missed completely in the business planning because I was like, okay, I didn't think about that. And yes, this company is already doing something very similar. So what am I actually going to do that's differentiating myself? And in the end, I was like, it's a no-go. So I think you've always got to be clear in your expectations and your goals and taking people on the journey. And it's exciting, right? So you got to make sure that your investors are excited about the opportunity and the space and where they can sort of grow in the market.
100%. But for the everyday marketer, right, they're not thinking about starting their own product necessarily. They might have a side hustle idea, but for their teams and their day-to-day work, what other things aside from the business development side of things that you learn through sales, also through marketing? What are the things that, having started a business or a number of businesses and going through those motions, whether it's talking to investors, whether it's talking to stakeholders, keeping everyone updated, going through LinkedIn, doing the smorgasbord of the different things that a startup founder has to go through, what things can you pull from that? Lessons, a single lesson that you can tell that you've brought along with you into your marketing role that you kind of go, that has been key, that can set me aside from the general humdrum of a standard traditional marketer. So anything you can pull off?
Yeah, definitely. I would say work out your priorities before jumping into a whole lot of different action points, because I think, and it's across any sort of role, is often what happens is, especially in the marketing sort of front, is you quite quickly pulled into a lot of different aspects of the role. You expected to turn around a lot of different stuff. I would say take your time, identify exactly what is important, what is aligned strategically to the company, and where you're going to start out with your initiative. And I would say, turn back people that are reaching out to you for unnecessary time to, do things that you shouldn't be wasting your time on. I would say presentations and little PowerPoints and stuff like that, in my view, is not a marketing job. That is a, if you got a brand team, yes, but I would say that should be, whoever's presenting should be aligned to the brand. They've got the branding guidelines and they should be up to date with how the presentation should look and learn how to make a presentation. So anything like that, I would say push back. That's not your role. And I would also say making sure you're prioritizing and focusing on the right things that's actually going to be in line with the initiatives. Don't get caught out later when you've got the executive team coming down your throat saying, where's this solution or initiative sort of focus? We haven't done that. So making sure that you've got a very aligned approach to market, making sure that you are aligned to the initiatives as well with the sales and the rest of the team, so that if anyone comes back in the future and says, well, this doesn't work, you can at least show why it didn't work and you've got the learnings to back yourself up. And then just don't go out there and, randomly put things on social media and stuff like that. Everything should have a plan and a focus in mind. So even like where I am now, I've sort of built out the entire year's event strategy so that we know we're going to be spending this amount of events. And again, those events are sort of broken down according to initiatives. So if we're going after a particular initiative, those are the events that are going to help us drive those initiatives. Not just this event looks great because someone in sales might have sent it to me and they think we should attend. Well, no, because I need the ROI off the back of that. So I need to prove later that that's the reason I sort of, put money and budget towards that event. So yeah, I'd say metrics, prioritizing things, and making sure you got a proper system in place that can measure those results at the back of, and data to back it up. So always make sure you got your data in place, clean data.
Great stuff. Environmental, social, and governance. This is a particular area of interest for you. You spoke about just then on that previous point and in other previous points, but in particular that previous point around understanding what initiatives that are right for you and the organization. ESG seems to have been something that has become very largely at the forefront for you. Tell me about that. Why is it something that's, I understand the importance, but tell me why in particular have you become such a specialist at it?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, there was a lot of influence from clients and that we were sort of speaking to, and I never really captured ESG fully as an understanding back then when I was sort of talking to them. It was always just a conversation point, but I dived into it, and I think at the time that we did have courses that I found that sort of gave more information around ESG, and ESG was always something that was in the back of my mind. And I think a lot of people, whenever you look at LinkedIn and things like that, we're always talking about Scope 3 and how they're going to bring that in. And it's very key to us building out some of our solutions within the last company I was at, to making sure that we can adapt quickly to the client's expectations. But when I started learning more about it, I realized there's a lot more to ESG than obviously just trying to build a product or solution into it. There's different aspects that sort of intrigued me where, people in the northern hemisphere were creating, all the pollution that was really affecting the southern hemisphere, and how the southern hemisphere, which is generally the more poorer area within the globe, are the ones that are actually suffering off the back of that. Little things like that I wasn't thinking about until I actually started looking into it. And then they do this whole thing around the graph where they talk about, I think it's 10 different aspects around the world where you're looking like your ecology, I think it's the word, and like the marine life and the breathable air and all this sort of stuff, and where we are as a percentage to either the threshold or over that. I think it was like 7 out of 10 of those thresholds we had already passed to the no return point. So it was really interesting to understand where we were in terms of that, and then not just obviously from an environmental point of view, but for myself personally on a governance and social sort of side, what is it within our own organization? And often you sort of see things in organizations that aren't correct from a governance sort of level. There should be things in place that sort of stop things from particularly happening, and you sort of see it around these massive companies as well. There's not a lot of protection of particular people that might be working for an organization, or unfair sort of movement. And it's interesting because there was one of the case studies that was actually in the study I was doing. It was about this massive mining company. I won't name who it was, but they'd basically gone out and destroyed these villages for people just to get this mining. And then off the back of that, now they're at all these events that I go to, and I can see them talking about, these are the things we put into place to actually readjust what we had done previously. So we're working with like the indigenous people to do this and build back, and we're doing this and putting money into that. And it's just, it's become a massive focus point. And I think that was key for me when I was dealing with commercial real estate, because commercial real estate has a massive impact on, sustainability and making sure that they can track their suppliers, and they're going to build and invest in a new organization, new company, or, building. What sort of sustainability options are they going to build into that building and, future wise. Now I'm dealing with a company or working at a company where it's very important that people can track their suppliers. So, out of your suppliers that you're working in the government sort of sector, and you have a whole lot of people you can go out to tender for a particular, aspect. If you want to build a road or something like that, are you fairly going out and sort of distributing your tender to the different suppliers out there that can actually impact you? And are you within the suppliers looking at like an indigenous supplier who can actually, add value from an Australian footprint point of view? So, and then measuring that all the way through. So at the end of the day, it's becoming a lot more important now. And I think it's going to continue to grow, where companies need their data, not just for their shareholders, but also for their reputation. And it's going to become a financial aspect as well, where they're looking at what sustainability options they bring into the organization that's going to future impact them and their, credit score and things like that across their employees and their clients and stakeholders and all the rest. So it's a very interesting topic. Something talk about quite a bit, and got a couple media pieces going out at the moment, but I think it's closely linked to both our company and obviously to our clients as well. So I think it's a key aspect. But in saying that, there's so many other things. There's AI and all that other stuff that's sort of coming out there. So it's
that's it. There are so many topics and so many important things that are in our ecosystem right now that we would need longer than an hour to sit down and talk about it all. But good on you from the ESG front and finding that that's something that really resonates with you and it's at the forefront of your mind. I was just genuinely interested to know that and why, and you explained it beautifully.
Yeah.
We are coming to time, so I've got 4 rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah.
I haven't sent to you, right?
Yeah, okay.
All right. Ready?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. This is just for us to get to know you a little bit more. We might put these at the front of the episode when in the post.
Okay. Prepare the audience. Yeah, okay.
No, they're not scary questions. First question is, what's one resource that fundamentally changed the way you work or live? Resource being a book, a blog, a podcast talk.
Oh, I would say probably my mentors, actually. I think having the ability to tap into their skills and experience and knowledge and, just sort of question things, even things that I think are, strategic in my mind, they've sort of altered my thinking and given me a different sort of viewpoint. So yeah, definitely say having, not even just one, a couple of different mentors that can look at different industry verticals and different options and, you're not just getting that one page. Yeah.
Bounce ideas from soundboard, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, 100%.
And they're ongoing, right? So long as they're happy to continue.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I would say just avoid the paid ones, because there's a couple out there that, you got to pay for mentorship. There's a lot of people out there with the skills and they are more than happy to help out. You just got to reach out and connect and say that you want them as a mentor.
Reach out. That's it.
Exactly.
2 weeks in the sales department, you'll be fine.
That's right.
If you could give one piece of advice to B2B marketers, what would it be?
I would say make sure you're across all your MarTech as much as possible. Things are adapting and moving quite quickly. And I would say AI is one of those things that are really moving forward. B2B, I would probably look at something more like demand, six sense in a demand-based sort of world, and mapping out your entire, within those sort of systems, your titles and your personas within each organization. So you got a full map of the organization before you sort of push out content and stuff like that.
Who are the influencers that you follow in the marketing space?
I'd probably say Fiona Tipping. She used to be my old director, and I'd say she brought me quite ahead of the time in a lot of stuff, and was able to give me some really good advice on a lot of stuff very quickly. So I think it was a quick learning curve working underneath her, but I think she was really, really brilliant in that. And yeah, I'd say there's another gentleman, I actually forgot his name, is one of the head of, he leads the marketing team for TikTok. And I've met him a couple of times at events and things like that. And I think he's brilliant. And the other one I'd probably recommend is more an association, which is the Product Marketing Alliance. I would probably connect in with them because they are sharing stuff all the time. And I think they're connected to PMA. So there's a couple of different angles to sort of look out there. But I would definitely recommend everyone gets advice or looks after someone within the industry, within those verticals that are doing well, to sort of leverage their experience.
Final rapid fire question for you. Hold on to your seat.
Yeah.
What's something that excites you about B2B marketing today, or B2B in general? Something that excites you?
Yeah, good question. I would say the ability to grow and expand and test and learn as you go. I think B2B has so much more to offer, in my own biased opinion, than if you're going to B2C or something like that. I think B2B is so much more strategic. So I'd say get into a strategic level, start speaking strategically and making sure that you're at the same level as the board and the executive directors, making sure you're talking their language. And I think that's what excites me, is the ability to grow and learn from the different industry verticals and, boost your knowledge and things like that. And, we talk about AI and ESG and all those other things. There's so many other things that come into play. And ABM's just, one of them out there that's sort of coming to speed with the marketing channel. So, and there's so much software. There's like so much software now where you can do so much stuff. So, yeah. Very exciting times for the marketing side. And you could track everything. I think that's the cool thing, like being able to go back and actually see the data and then being able to say, this is the data. So I can see you've spoken to them so many times, or we've
This is the data
5 times. Yeah. Why haven't they converted? So, yeah. I think that's what's exciting. Whereas B2C is not like that. I think you gotta it's hit and miss, right? If you don't catch the first time with the right messaging, it's difficult. Whereas B2B, you get a couple options and different verticals. You should be digital ads, email marketing, socials, everything to try and engage with particular people.
Brynn, thanks so much. That's all the questions I've got for you today. I'll just finish by saying to everyone that's listening, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button. It helps in more ways than you can ever imagine. It helps us get more guests on the pod, which means more listeners, which means more guests, which means more listeners, which means more guests. So be kind, rewind, and all that lovely stuff. And Brynn, thanks again so much for having the time spent with me today. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome, Vinnie. It was really, really good conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Cheers, Brynn. Thanks, everyone.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Liza Maywald and Alexander Hipwell. It was edited by Dave Samito with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Liza and Alexander. Special thanks to Tina Wabe, we couldn't make this show without you. This episode was hosted by Vinnie Romano. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to know more about Growth Colony, check out our newsletter and subscribe with the link in the pod description. Do you think you'd be a great guest or just interested in a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. Or fill out the form in the description. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week right here on Growth Colony.